Welcome to the ABCs of Preschool, the show that covers all things from parenting to childcare. And we're going to get real about how not just to survive, but thrive in the early years. I'm your host, Miss Amber. I'm a mom of 5 and early childhood expert with over 25 years in the industry. Whether you're a parent, an educator, or just curious about early childhood education, this podcast is for you. Each week, we're going to dive into what life looks like raising little ones, with special guests, industry experts, and personal stories that will leave you inspired and empowered. Get ready to explore, imagine, and discover the beautifully messy that comes with these magical years. Buckle up, because thriving during the early years is a wild and rewarding ride. Hi, everybody. It's Miss Amber with the ABCs of Preschool podcast. Welcome. I'm really excited for this episode about traditions. And I want to dedicate this episode to my mom, who is no longer with us. My mom's been on my mind a lot lately, and probably I had surgery recently. So my mom was always there. She would be there at every procedure, every surgery. Even if I didn't want her there, she was always there. So my last 3 surgeries I've had I've really missed her presence. And this week, especially, I've been feeling a lot of emotions. Grief is funny sometimes, and this show's not about grief, but grief sneaks up on you sometimes. And I was in Sam's Club the other day, and there was this giant Christmas decorations are out, and I almost broke down in the middle of the aisle because I just missed her. And even though we had a sometimes not so good a relationship, it really is true when someone does pass, especially your parent, really leaves a deep hole in your heart. But this is going to be a fun one because my mom really instilled tradition and traditions that she started that I've passed down to my kids that I did when my kids were little. And I think traditions are really important in a family unit as well as in the workplace, in a childcare center. So I also have traditions that I have been keeping up with for over 23 years in my Loving Start Learning centers. So we're going to talk traditions today because I think it's a really fun way to make holidays and events really magical. And those traditions are the things my kids really remember the most. And me as well, because I don't remember a lot when I was younger in my childhood. I just don't. But I remember the traditions and I remember how they made me feel. So let's talk tradition. So Christmas, the holidays are coming up. And, I always say the 0 to 5 years of age is so magical because everything is so real, right? We can see life and holidays through our kids' eyes, and it makes everything way more exciting. So when I was a kid, my mom had a set of bells, and I actually have them in my lap. These are the actual bells that's really worn. Actually, it's like ripping on the bottom. I mean, these are, I don't know, 30 some years old, but my mom would put bells. So it was just my brother and I. I have a younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me. Shout out to Josh, my bro. We were 2 years apart, so she would put bells on his bedroom door and bells on my bedroom door the night before Christmas morning. We were not allowed to leave our room. Like, it was tradition. You cannot leave your room. Christmas morning, we weren't allowed to just run out and start opening gifts. Nope, that's not how it worked. My mom had to get the house ready. I mean, she had the fire in the fireplace, the candles lit, there was Christmas music on. My dad had the video camera ready to go. We were allowed to, when they said we could open up our doors in the morning, we can go in the bathroom and get ready, right? Whatever we need to do, comb our hair, whatever. But there'd be a countdown. We were not allowed to go into the living room until my mom said, okay, it's time. She created this anticipation and this magic of Christmas morning because there was perimeters around it, and it was the same every single year until we got older. But it was special because it was just this tradition that was created. And she also, for Valentine's Day, had a tradition of a fancy meal. We would have this fancy meal together. She'd have gifts for us. And Valentine's too was also a really special event and moment. And those are really things I just cherish and I hold on dear to. And I will forever remember my mom. And go figure. So when my kids were little, it's so funny because my mom and dad were Pentecostal Christian. I grew up in a really, really religious home. And I don't know why, but my mom told me from young that there was no Santa Claus. And I was the kid that would go around telling everybody there's no Santa Claus. But we all know there's a Santa Claus. So when I was a young mom and I had my kids were little, I was going to carry on that tradition. I do not know why, because enjoy the magic, like the Disneyland and the magic of Christmas. But I remember when my kids were little, my two sons were 17 months apart. So I have three boys and a daughter. I have Spencer, Wyatt, Colby, and Gabby. And so I remember when I think it was just the two boys, maybe three, they're all around 2 years apart, 17 months and then 2 years apart. But I remember trying to tell my oldest there was no Santa Claus. And he did not believe me. He was like, "You're not telling the truth, Mommy. There is a Santa Claus." And at that moment, I was like, "Of course there is. Yes, there is." So that I would not take from my mom. But I started the Christmas tradition with my own kids. So the tradition with my own kids was I would lock them all. They would all have a sleepover in one room on Christmas Eve, tuck them in and talk about Santa's going to come and make it like just super exciting. And I put the bells on the door, and I told them they could not come out. And then my ex-husband and I would do the same thing that my parents did all those years ago. On Christmas morning, I'd make sure I have a fire. I'd have the candles going. I'd have a special Christmas breakfast getting ready. I'd have the music on, the video camera, and then that same anticipation, that tradition holds strong to this day. I don't think now my kids are grown up, but they'd still talk fondly of that. And when I think for the last few years, they still were like sleeping in the same room and enjoying that Christmas morning tradition. So there's traditions that I've also done in my school since day one. So when I opened up Loving Start Learning Center, it was in 2001, and we were building this school we took out like a home equity line and built a classroom onto our house off of our living room. So the first year I opened up in October, and that December, right out of the gate, I believe in traditions and special events, especially for the early years, because it's so magical when you're 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's awesome to create wonderful traditions for kids, because when they get to elementary school, junior high, and high school, all of that kind of goes out the window. So right out the gate, when I opened up my school was October. So that first November, I threw my first tradition of a Thanksgiving feast. And to this day, we still have that Thanksgiving feast at my schools. We've done it a little bit differently we've grown really big. We've had to get big event centers now. So sometimes we've combined our Christmas program with our feast, but that's been pretty solid this whole time since 2001. So Thanksgiving feast or some sort of thankful event. And for a long time with my schools, this was really special. Then it kind of grew bigger, and it's harder to do when you have like 200 people. But when you have a smaller school or a smaller center, we would do the gratitude circle. This is actually another tradition that I started. I actually started this one a long time ago when my kids were young, and I continue it through any Thanksgiving that I host at my home with family and friends, or I think my kids do it too with their dad still, but something called the gratitude circle, I call it. So when you have Thanksgiving, it's really cool to make a circle in your house, and people can hold hands or not, and just go around quickly and say something that you're grateful for. It's a really great tradition. We used to do it for years at Loving Start Learning Center at our Thanksgiving feast, but then we got too big and it could take an hour to go through everybody. It got too big for that, but that was a tradition, the gratitude circle. That's one that I do, hosting even big events or parties at my own house, just taking a moment to gather all your friends and family. Another one was the Thanksgiving feast. And so one of my schools just had their version of things. The Thanksgiving feast was friendship soup. So all the families came in to the center and had lunch and brought soups in a big potluck. It's a great way to bring in community. It's a great way for clients to get to know each other or your employees to get to know each other better. Even if you have a different business, I think traditions are really important in the workplace and in family life. So I've had gratitude circle, Thanksgiving feast. Then there is the Christmas extravaganza. It has been going on since 2001. The first time I had the Christmas extravaganza, I had 5 students and the new classroom we were building onto our home because I started my preschool and ran my school out of my home for 9 years before I went to the large center. So the room wasn't quite done, but there was like the living room and then the classroom we were building, but it was sheetrocked. So it was enough where I put a little Christmas tree. I am pregnant with my second, have a little belly, and I put on a Christmas show, a Christmas extravaganza for my clients, my 5 kids and their families with some food at the end. And we just had our huge Christmas extravaganza. We've gotten really big that we have to do one of my schools, we do 2 shows. So we break it up. We have a morning group and an evening group. Over the years have combined our Christmas extravaganza with our Thanksgiving feast. So everybody brings food and then we put on our Christmas show. And it's a wonderful tradition. And especially when you bring that into, I think it's so important if you maybe are a teacher at a childcare center or preschool, maybe you are the owner or the director. I think it's really important to go over and beyond for our clients. And these events, Christmas programs, Thanksgiving feast, Valentine's, Easter, whatever it is, it really only happens in the early years because in elementary school, that all goes out the window. These are the things that the kids are really going to remember the most. And so will the parents, getting all the students dressed up in their cute little Christmas vest and they're singing and they have little costumes. As the founder and the owner, too, those are the moments I step back in awe and think, oh my gosh, look what I've created. And it's not just me. Look at my amazing team and these amazing families have all come together for this amazing tradition. And traditions are awesome because they're expected and they happen every single year and there's anticipation for it. So during this Christmas time, think about traditions for your own family. For my school, we also do, of course, Valentine's is huge. We do a Valentine's party. And as a mom, I've carried the Valentine tradition that my mom started with me and my brother. So every Valentine's Day, I think last year, my kids are older now. It's harder to all the kids. I have one son who's in the military. So it's harder to snag everybody these days for when they're together. But I think last was the first year I did not do one. Wow, that's really, maybe I should just do it next week when my son's home. I don't know. But Valentine's is another really huge tradition that my mom started. My mom started a Valentine's dinner and she always had special gifts for us. She would use the china. Even if it was for taco night, we had the china and it was just anticipated. It was special. It was memorable. And she had cards for us and she'd write a love note to us. And I have carried that tradition on every year with my own kids. And some years I had my mom and dad with us, and I had my mother-in-law and father-in-law with us. And every year, the kids, I would make a menu. I would have a fancy dinner. I've had some of the kids have had their girlfriends along for some of our Valentines. I think it's just part of family history too, and culture and business culture. If you have a center or maybe you work in an office, but creating traditions in the workplace can create a sense of home. We spend a lot of times at work and jobs. Like it's our second home. So let's make it fun. Let's make it memorable and let's make things special because a lot of things aren't special in life. So we have Valentine's. Easter at my Loving Start Learning Center is huge too. I was the Easter bunny multiple times over the years. We always have the Easter Bunny come and we do Easter egg hunt. And at Christmas, we always have Santa, which is super fun. And the kids get little gifts from Santa. So Easter, I've been the Easter Bunny like 9 months pregnant. And that's a fun tradition that happens every year, without a doubt, Easter egg hunt and a visit from the Easter Bunny. At my schools, we also do a big Mother's Day tea, which is very special. We like to pamper and celebrate our moms. We also do donuts for dad for all of our amazing dads. We do a big graduation for all of our kids that are graduating our program. So traditions, even on the first week of school, second week of school, we do an ice cream social. These traditions that I've had in my centers are carried on today and will forever. As long as our doors are open, these traditions will remain. And my own personal ones, like the gratitude circle and the Christmas traditions. I have a feeling when I have grandkids, these traditions my mom started, the bells on the door before on Christmas Eve and the Valentine's dinner, I really have a feeling my kids are going to carry on that tradition. And it's just cool. I think it's awesome. So think about it. I mean, if you are an entrepreneur, you have your own business, and even in your family unit, what traditions do you have? What do you want to start? There's a lot of things, even talking to my oldest who I want to bring on the show. I don't know if you remember things in your childhood. I just don't remember a lot. My son says he doesn't remember a lot either. But what they do remember is these traditions. So I think it's a great way to bring in magic moments for our littles and creating something that's generational. Thank you, Mom. As a kid, I knew those events were special, the Valentine's dinner, the bells, because I would anticipate them. But then when I became a mom, I really looked at them differently as like a treasure, like wrapped up very beautifully and special with a perfect little bow on top. It's a really beautiful memory for me. And I have so many beautiful memories being the mom and putting on these traditions and seeing the excitement and the kids talking, even when they're like adults talking about the events. It brings a lot of joy. And sometimes this world, if you watch the media or watch the news, the world can seem like a really dark place, but in fact, it's not. When you focus in on your bubble, your family, I believe family is the most important thing in this life. I have a tattoo on my arm that says, one of my first tattoos, well, besides these girls, I was in Thailand and I got family tattooed in Thai on my arm. I never thought I'd be the tattoo arm girl, but I totally am. And family is the most important thing. And I have my family with my kids and my amazing husband and my brother and his family and my intermediate family. But I also look at it as I have family within Loving Start Learning Centers. And I'm really proud of that, because I think when we, as entrepreneurs, as founders, as owners, it is up to us to bring in the culture, the work-life culture, and to bring in traditions, and it starts with us to have that feeling of family extended to our team. So bringing in traditions into the workplace, I think, is an amazing thing and builds friendships, bonds, memories, joy, happiness, acceptance. So I think traditions are amazing. So with the holidays here, like, what are some of your traditions you want to start? Or what are some of your traditions that you love now? Keeping on with those traditions, because your kids are really going to appreciate it. And thank you, Mom, for those traditions. I'm really thankful for them, and it's fun to keep them going. So this is Miss Amber wishing you the best week ahead. Wish it, dream it, do it. And remember, all those goals you have can come true if you put a little work into it.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hear this podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss the next episode. For more information on how to work with me, Miss Amber, visit me at thelovingstartway.com or follow me on Insta at thelovingstartway.